So I currently have 4 different home gym setups that use 3 different types of resistance in order to provide tension to the muscles, creating an anabolic response to grow muscle at rest. And I personally like to go to what's called momentary muscular failure. So this is basically where you can't move the resistance in the contracted phase of the lift anymore, and then you have to end the set there, or in some cases, go beyond, which I'll cover here. Now the 3 types of equipment I have that produce the resistance are resistance bands, dumbbells with body weight, and electromagnetic resistance with something like the Speediance that I own. And each of these has their pros and cons, but I'm going to jump right into my first one, which is resistance bands and how I use it to reach failure to generate the stimulus needed for muscle growth. So looking at resistance bands, these use variable resistance, so as you stretch the band, more resistance is applied against your muscles throughout that range of motion. Now the big concern I've had with these is that the resistance curve might not match your strength curve very well, but if you're able to still reach failure, you should still be applying a very big stimulus to the muscles that should still create an anabolic response. But I do like to do a bit of additional work to make sure I reach failure in different parts of that range of motion, just so I know I actually reached a failure point that generates that stimulus. So what this looks like for me is that when I do a rep, say like a biceps curl, I'll go all the way to the top to where I can't do it anymore, and then I'm going to do 2 more partial reps as far as I can in that range. And also, when I'm doing this, it's pretty slow, so I'm actually going up into the contracted position as far as I can, and then slowly lowering down for about 3 seconds, and then trying the next rep for maybe about 2 seconds concentric, and so on and so on. So again, you're going to go as far as you can the first one, slowly lower down, go as far as you can with the next one, but it shouldn't be as far as the previous rep. Hold that for a second, then lower slowly back down, and then one final rep, you should barely move it at all, and then you are done. So I do like this method because you fail out in each part of the range of motion. It might not be necessary, but it's just like what I like to do to make sure I'm actually getting a great enough stimulus for the muscle to get bigger and stronger. So the next home gym setup I have uses dumbbells. These are the core fitness dumbbells and body weight with some body weight equipment as well. So in this case, we're no longer using variable resistance, but we're going to be using gravity, as that is what applies the resistance and also the weights we are using. So it's always in a vertical up and down plane, as gravity is always acting down towards the earth. So for this method, all we are going to do is that once you reach momentary muscular failure at any point of the range of motion, you're going to end that set. But what I like to do is I hold it for about 3 seconds in that stuck position, and then again slowly for about 3 to 5 seconds, lower the weight out, and then end my set. So essentially for something like a bicep curl, again, it's my example, I'll go as far as I can in that last rep. You usually fail somewhere maybe around the midpoint with that rep, and then you would just hold that for 3 seconds as far as you went, and then slowly lower it down until you didn't have any resistance anymore, and then you just drop the weights, you're done, record it, and you're good to go. So you could do something like partial reps that I do with my resistance bands with dumbbells and body weight. However, I found it less necessary. When looking at the resistance bands, they do provide less tension when you don't stretch the band as much. So that's kind of like why I mentally like to do those 2 extra reps at a shortened range of motion. That way I make sure I fail out throughout the entire range. But with dumbbells, you probably don't need to do that. So you could just, once you reach that momentary muscular failure point, you just hold it for a few seconds, and then you just slowly lower out through the eccentric and end that set. Alright, and for my last home gym setups, I actually have 2 of these. One is the Speediance Gym Monster, and the next one is the Speediance Gym Pal. I did receive both of these for free in a review, but I have them, so might as well go over how I go to failure with each of these as well. So for this one, the Gym Pal and the Gym Monster both share one thing, and that is that they have spotter modes. Now, yes, you could just go to failure and you have something like a ring that you can turn on and off the resistance, but I like to go all the way through all my sets to complete the reps, so I use something called Spotter 2, which when you reach a failure point or a sticking point in the range of motion, the resistance after a second or 2 will actually reduce the resistance for you over time until it gets all the way down to the minimum of 7.5 pounds from what I found on each device. So what this might look like is that, say you're doing the bicep curl, you're doing all the way up, eventually it gets overpowering to where you can't do it. So at that point, once you hold it for a few seconds, it'll start to gradually reduce the resistance until you can go against it again and keep pulling through that range of motion to what's called draw the cable. So then you can complete that rep, and then you do it again until you can't lift it anymore, and then it'll reduce the resistance. So essentially it's basically like doing drop sets or mini drop sets in that set, allowing you to, again, keep generating the stimulus to make sure that you reach failure. The one thing that I always look into when working out by myself is, am I truly reaching a point that I'm actually generating the stimulus needed? That's why I do like going to failure, especially when working out alone. Just make sure you do it in a safe manner and you're not doing anything crazy that might get you injured. So in short, when using resistance bands, I like to do 2 additional reps after that momentary muscular failure set, both at a shortened range of motion from the previous rep. The next one is for dumbbells and bodyweight. All I do is once I reach that momentary muscular failure, hold it for 3 to 5 seconds, and then slowly go through the eccentric or lengthening part of the range of motion until you have no tension, and then you just put down the weights to end your set. And then the last one is that electromagnetic resistance, where I'm doing what's kind of like mini drop sets, in that once you reach that failure point, you hold it as long as you can, the system will reduce the resistance, and then you can keep going and going and going until you either end the set or you have no more resistance to use. So with that, try this out with the equipment that you have in your home gym and see how it goes. It works very well for me, depending on which one I'm kind of go with, but try it out, see if it works, and see if you can generate the stimulus you need to get stronger and build muscle in your home workouts.